The last thing I remember wasn't pain. It was the hum of the server room at Green Tech and the smell of stale coffee from my mug. It was 9:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was the only one left on the floor, trying to finish a project projection that wasn't even due until next week. But that's who I was. The reliable one. The machine. Then the room tilted. It wasn't a slow fade. It was a violent shift, like someone had grabbed the axis of the earth and yanked it sideways. My chest didn't hurt immediately. It just felt like it had been encased in concrete. I tried to reach for my phone, but my fingers felt like sausages, numb and unresponsive. I remember thinking, I can't be sick. Mom needs the mortgage transfer tomorrow. That was my final thought before the floor rushed up to meet my face.
Mom needs the money. Not I'm dying, not help me, just the obligation. When I opened my eyes, the world was white and beeping. The sterile smell of antiseptic burned my nose. My throat felt like I had swallowed a handful of razor blades. "Welcome back, Chelsea," a voice said. It was a nurse, a kind-looking woman in her 50s with tired eyes. She was adjusting an IV drip. "You gave us quite a scare. Cardiac event, stress-induced. You're 34, honey. You shouldn't have the heart readings of a CEO twice your age." I tried to sit up, but the wires tethering me to the machines pulled taut. "My phone," I croaked. "I need to tell them." The nurse's expression shifted. It wasn't pity. It was a mix of frustration and hesitation. She patted my hand gently. "We called your emergency contacts. We called them 5 times, Chelsea. Your father, your mother, your sister. They must be on their way," I whispered, panic rising in my chest. "Is traffic bad?" "They didn't answer," she said softly. "We left voicemails stating it was a critical emergency, that you were in the ICU." I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the little dots to keep from crying. They didn't answer. Maybe they were asleep. Maybe their phones were on silent. My family was chaotic, sure, but they loved me. They had to. I was the one who fixed everything. "I need my phone," I insisted. She hesitated, but retrieved it from the drawer of the bedside table. It was fully charged. The screen lit up. No missed calls, no texts, just a notification from Facebook.
My thumb hovered over the icon. I shouldn't look. I knew I shouldn't look, but I did. It was a photo posted 2 hours ago, while I was lying unconscious, hooked up to monitors, fighting for my life. The photo was bright, saturated with sunshine. It was taken at a lakeside park about an hour from the city. There was a picnic spread that looked like something out of a magazine. Expensive cheeses, wine, sparkling water. And there they were. My dad, Robert, holding a glass of wine, looking relaxed in a new polo shirt I knew I had paid for. My mom, Alina, laughing with her head thrown back. My younger sister, Peyton, making a peace sign. And my older sister, Marissa, the influencer, holding the camera. But it was the caption that stopped my heart faster than the stress had. "Finally, a family day without the drama. So peaceful when we focus on the people who actually bring positive vibes. Hashtag family first, no negativity, blessed, picnic life." And then the kicker. Marissa had tagged me. She tagged me in the photo of the event I wasn't invited to. The event they were enjoying while ignoring calls from the ICU. Without the drama. That's what I was to them? Drama? I scrolled down to the comments. "Where's Chelsea?" a cousin asked. Marissa's reply. "Oh, she's too busy working as usual. Never has time for family. We decided to prioritize joy today." Prioritize joy. I lay there, the cold hospital air seeping into my bones. I didn't cry. I think I was too dehydrated to cry. I just felt a hollow space opening up inside me, a vacuum where my love for them used to be. I looked at the timestamps. The nurse had called them at 10:15 p.m., 10:30 p.m., and again this morning at 7 a.m. Marissa posted the photo at 11 a.m. They knew. They had to have seen the voicemails. They just didn't care. "You okay, hun?" the nurse asked, seeing the color drain from my face. "I'm fine," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. It sounded dead. Actually, I've never been clearer. The nurse looked at me with that knowing look women get when they recognize a hard truth has landed. Get some rest. The doctor will be in shortly. As she left, I stared at the phone. I didn't comment. I didn't like the photo. I just took a screenshot.
To understand why that photo broke me, you have to understand the decade that led up to it. I wasn't just a daughter. I was the infrastructure of the Miller family. I grew up hearing that we were unlucky. My dad, Robert, lost his job during the housing crisis 7 years ago. A lot of people did. It was tragic. But while other men took lower-paying jobs or retrained, Dad decided he was too senior for anything less than a director role. He spent his days networking on the golf course or researching investment schemes that never panned out. My mom, Elena, was the enabler-in-chief. She'd look at me with big, watery eyes and say, "Chelsea, your father is a proud man. We can't let him feel like a failure. Family protects dignity." Protecting his dignity apparently meant me paying the mortgage. I started at Green Tech as an intern and clawed my way up to senior project manager. I didn't do it because I loved the corporate grind. I did it because every month there was a crisis. "Chelsea, the car insurance is due, and if we don't pay it, how will your sister get to her auditions?" Marissa, the golden child. She was 29, 5 years older than me, and still finding herself. She wanted to be an actress, then a model, and now an influencer. She had 15,000 followers, most of whom I suspected were bots she bought with the allowance Mom gave her, from my salary. Then there was Peyton, 22, studying design. I paid her tuition because Dad said, "We can't let her take out loans. Debt ruins a young person's start in life." The irony wasn't lost on me. I had $60,000 in student loans because my parents said they couldn't afford to help me when I went to college. "It builds character, Chelsea," Dad had said, patting my shoulder. "You're the strong one. You can handle it." And that was the trap. The label. The strong one. If you're the strong one, you don't get to be tired. You don't get to be sick. And you certainly don't get to say no. I remember a specific night 6 months ago. I had just received a promotion, a significant bump in my salary. I was so proud. I went to my parents' house for dinner, thinking maybe we'd celebrate. I brought a nice bottle of wine. Before I could even uncork it, Mom slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a foreclosure notice, warning. "We didn't want to worry you," Mom whispered, dabbing her eyes. "Your father made some risky stock bets. We're 3 months behind." 3 months? I choked out. "Mom, I just gave you $4,000 last month for the roof repairs. Was there even a leak?" Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Are you auditing us, Chelsea? Is that what this is? After everything we sacrificed to raise you?" "I'm not auditing you, Dad. I'm asking where the money went." "It went to keeping this family afloat," he shouted. "You have no idea the pressure I'm under. But fine, if you want to see your parents on the street, keep the money. Go buy yourself a fancy purse. We'll sleep in the car." Of course I paid it. I drained my savings account, the money I was setting aside for a down payment on my own condo. I paid the arrears and I set up a direct debit for the mortgage so it wouldn't happen again. I bought peace, or so I thought. But the requests never stopped. Marissa needed a new laptop for content creation. Peyton needed supplies for her final project. Mom needed dental work. It was a slow bleed. $1,000 here, $500 there. I became a ghost in my own life. My colleagues would invite me to happy hour, and I'd say no because I had to work overtime to cover Marissa's credit card bill. I dated a nice guy, Mark, for 3 months, but he broke up with me because, as he put it, I can't marry a woman who is already married to her parents. He was right. Lying in that hospital bed, staring at the photo of them laughing, the fog finally lifted. They looked so healthy. Their skin was glowing. They were drinking wine that cost $40 a bottle. They looked rested. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. I looked gray. There were dark circles carved under my eyes. My hair was thinning from stress. I had given them my youth, my financial security, and now, nearly my life. And in exchange, family day without the drama. I was the drama. My existence, my needs, my medical emergency, it was an inconvenience to their picnic. I realized then that I wasn't a daughter to them. I wasn't a sister. I was a resource. I was a human ATM that they could kick when it didn't dispense cash fast enough. And the thing about machines, eventually they break. Or, if they're smart, they get reprogrammed. The hospital kept me for 3 days. 3 days of observation, heart monitors, and blood thinners. For the first 48 hours, my phone was silent. No one called back. No one texted to ask, "Hey, the hospital left a scary voicemail. Are you okay?" It was radio silence. I watched the likes on Marissa's photo climb. 200 likes, 300 likes, comments pouring in about what a beautiful, tight-knit family they were. Mom commented, "Blessed to have my babies with me." Babies. Marissa was pushing 30. Peyton was an adult. And I was forgotten. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, the silence broke. My phone started buzzing on the tray table.
It vibrated so hard it nearly fell off. Dad. I didn't answer. I just watched the name flash on the screen. Dad, Dad, Dad. Then Mom, then Marissa, then home landline. In the span of 2 hours, I received 74 missed calls. 74. If you didn't know them, you'd think, oh, thank God, they finally got the message. They're panicked. They're desperate to hear her voice. But I knew them. Panic doesn't look like 74 calls in a row. Panic looks like driving to the hospital. Panic looks like showing up. This was anger. This was entitlement. Finally, the text started rolling in. Dad, 10:14 a.m. Pick up the phone, Chelsea. Dad, 10:16 a.m. Where are you? We are at the resort checkout. The card was declined. Marissa, 10:20 a.m. Chels, seriously? This is embarrassing. The receptionist is looking at us like we're criminals. Transfer the funds, now. Chelsea, honey, please. Your father is getting very upset. His blood pressure can't take this. Fix it. We need you. Answer immediately. This is ungrateful behavior, even for you. I read that last one again. Ungrateful behavior. I was lying in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm because I had worked myself into a cardiac event to pay for their lifestyle, and I was the ungrateful one because their vacation credit card bounced. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It wasn't a scream. It was a quiet metallic click, like a lock engaging. The weeping, hurt little girl inside me who just wanted mommy and daddy to love her, she died in that moment. Or maybe she just went into a coma. What took her place was something cold, something sharp. I sat up. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. I felt dizzy, but I pushed through it. I didn't reply to the texts. I didn't transfer the money. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled past family. I scrolled down to Jay. Joe Miller, Grandpa Joe. Dad hadn't spoken to his father in 5 years. They had a falling out when Grandpa refused to invest in one of Dad's pyramid schemes. Dad called him a miserly old bean counter and banned him from family gatherings. I had only kept in touch with him secretly, sending Christmas cards and occasional emails. I pressed call. He picked up on the second ring. Chelsea? His voice was gravelly, surprised. Everything okay, kiddo? It's the middle of a work day. Grandpa, I said. My voice was steady, startlingly calm. I'm in the hospital. St. Mary's. ICU. Room 404. There was a pause. No questions about why. No hysterical screaming. Just the sound of a chair scraping back and keys jingling. I'm 40 minutes away, he said. Do you need me to bring anything? Legal? Medical? He knew. He didn't know the details, but he knew the players in this game. Just bring yourself, I said. And Grandpa, bring your laptop, the one with the accounting software. I'm on my way. I hung up. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marissa. Marissa,
OMG, are you ignoring us? Dad is literally yelling at the manager. You are ruining everything. Send the money or I swear I will never forgive you.
I looked at the text. Then I did something I had never done before. I took a screenshot. Then I opened my banking app. I navigated to the joint account, the one I filled and they drained. Balance, $12.42. Pending transactions, $4,500. Decline, luxury RV resort. I smiled. It was a small, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes. You're right, Marissa, I whispered to the empty room. I am ruining everything. You just have no idea how much yet. I placed the phone face down. The lawyer could deal with them later. Right now, I had an audit to prepare for. 40 minutes later, exactly as promised, Grandpa Joe walked through the door. He looked exactly as I remembered. Tall, slightly stooped, wearing a tweed jacket that had been out of fashion since 1995, and smelling faintly of pipe tobacco and peppermint. He carried a battered leather briefcase that looked like it had survived a war. In a way, it had. Joe Miller had been a forensic accountant for 40 years. He spent his career digging through the financial entrails of divorces, corporate fraud, and embezzlement schemes. He was the guy you hired when you wanted to find where the bodies, or at least the assets, were buried. He didn't rush to hug me. He walked to the foot of the bed, looked at the monitors, looked at my pale face, and his jaw tightened. The anger in his eyes was terrifying, but it wasn't directed at me. So, he said, his voice low. They finally broke you. Almost, I said. He pulled a chair up to the bedside, sitting down with a groan of stiff joints. I called the nurses' station on the way up, told them I'm your medical proxy. If Robert or Elena show up, security will stop them at the elevators. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he grunted, opening his briefcase. He pulled out a sleek, modern laptop, a surprising contrast to his tweed jacket. I assume since you called me and not a priest, we aren't here to pray for forgiveness. We're here to do math. They're at a resort, I said, cutting straight to the chase. They tried to charge $4,500 to the joint account. It declined. That's how they found out I was unavailable.
Unavailable, Joe repeated, tasting the word. You're in cardiac failure, Chelsea. Stress-induced. Family-induced, he corrected. He opened his laptop. I warned you, kid, 5 years ago. I told you, Robert thinks the world owes him a living, and he decided you are the world. You didn't listen. I thought it was love, I defended weakly. I thought if I just helped them enough, they'd be okay. They'd get back on their feet. Chelsea, he said, looking over his glasses. They aren't on their backs. They are riding on yours. There's a difference. He spun the laptop around. Log in. Everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, mortgage portals. If your name is on it, I want to see it. For the next 2 hours, the hospital room turned into a war room. I gave him passwords I had memorized. I gave him access to the credit cards I had opened as authorized user cards for them for emergencies. Grandpa Joe worked in silence, his fingers flying across the keys. Occasionally he would mutter things like, Jesus Christ, or, you have got to be kidding me. What? I asked, anxious. You have a salary of $140,000 a year, he noted without looking up, plus bonuses. You live in a studio apartment. You drive a 6-year-old Honda. I'm saving, I said. No, you're funneling, he corrected. I'm looking at the cash flow. It's a hemorrhage. He turned the screen to me. It was a spreadsheet he had whipped up in minutes. The columns were red. Here, he pointed. The dental work for your mother last November. $3,200. Yeah, she needed a root canal and a crown. Look at the merchant code, Joe topped the screen. That's not a dentist. That's Serenity Med Spa and Rejuvenation. She got Botox and fillers, Chelsea. My stomach dropped. No, she sent me a picture of her swollen jaw. Probably from the injections, he said dryly. Here, Marissa's laptop for work, $2,500, purchased at the Apple Store. Right. Followed 2 days later by a return credit to a debit card ending in 4490. That's Marissa's personal account. She bought the laptop with your money, returned it, and pocketed the cash.
I felt sick, physically sick. She stole from me? She laundered money through you, Joe corrected. It's amateur, but effective if the victim blindly trusts you. He kept scrolling. The car repairs for Dad were actually golf club fees. The textbooks for Peyton were Ticketmaster purchases. It wasn't just neediness. It was fraud. Systematic, deliberate fraud. They weren't bad with money. They were experts at extracting it from me. But here is the big one, Joe said, his voice dropping to a whisper. This is why you're in the hospital. He pulled up a loan document. What is that? I squinted at the screen. A Parent Plus loan? No, I paid off my student loans. This isn't for school, Joe said grimly. 6 months ago, your father took out a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, on the house you pay the mortgage on. He can't do that. The house is... Wait, the deed is in his name. Right. You pay the bills. He owns the asset.
He leveraged the equity, $80,000 worth. Do you know where that money is? I shook my head, terrified of the answer. It's gone, Joe said, and I found out where. $80,000? I whispered. The number felt abstract, like Monopoly money, but the chest pain was real enough. Gone in 6 months, Grandpa Joe confirmed. And here is the kicker. He clicked on a tab labeled Asset Tracing. 2 days before you collapsed, a wire transfer of $55,000 cleared from that HELOC account. It went to Freedom Road RV Sales. I blinked. An RV? Like a camper? Not a camper, Chelsea. A Winnebago, a luxury recreational vehicle. I stared at the screen. The pieces slammed together in my brain. The picnic, the text about the resort. They bought an RV, I said, my voice rising. They told me they were broke. Dad said they couldn't afford heating oil last month. I paid $600 for their heating oil. They bought an RV, Joe continued, ruthless in his delivery, because your father has this delusion that he's going to start a travel vlog channel. I saw the domain registration in the expenses, Robert's Road Rules. I started to laugh. It was a hysterical, jagged sound that made the heart monitor beep faster. A travel vlog? He's 62. He doesn't even know how to upload a PDF. It gets worse, Joe said. He never sugarcoated things. That's why I trusted him. The insurance for the RV. It's in your name. I didn't sign anything. You didn't have to.
Remember that power of attorney you signed 3 years ago, when your dad had that scare with his prostate? I nodded. Dad had convinced me it was just in case something happened to him during surgery, so I could manage the bills. You never revoked it, Joe said. He used it to put the RV insurance and the liability on your credit profile. If he crashes that thing, you get sued. If he stops making payments on the HELOC, which he will because he has no income, the bank forecloses on the house, but the debt for the RV insurance and maintenance falls on you. I closed my eyes. I felt violated. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was identity theft. It was financial rape. They were celebrating, I realized. The picnic, the photo. They weren't just having a family day. They were celebrating the new RV. And they needed you to transfer $4,500 to pay for the luxury site fees and the champagne, Joe finished. They bought the toy, but they needed you to fund the gas. I sat in silence for a long minute. The beeping of the monitor was the only sound. Grandpa, I said, how do I get out? Joe smiled. It was a wolfish smile. I thought you'd never ask. He cracked his knuckles. First, we stop the bleeding. We revoke the power of attorney. I have a lawyer friend, Vance, who can file that electronically within the hour. Second, we close the tap. They'll lose the house, I said. They already lost the house, Joe corrected. They just don't know it yet. With that HELOC and no income, they are underwater. But we can save you. Do it, I said.
We are going to execute a financial kill switch, Joe explained. We remove you as an authorized user on all cards. We freeze your credit reports so they can't open new lines. We redirect your paycheck to a new account at a different bank that they don't know exists. And the mortgage? You stop paying it. Today. Dad will scream. Let him scream. He bought an RV. He can live in it. Joe began typing furiously. I'm also going to draft a formal demand letter for the repayment of the loans, the laptop, the medical fraud. We won't get the money back, but it creates a paper trail. It establishes that this was theft, not a gift, useful for tax write-offs or court. Court. The word hung in the air. Do you think they'll sue me? I asked. Joe paused. He looked at me with a heavy sadness. People like Robert and Elena, when you take away their supply, they don't reflect on their behavior. They attack. They will view this as you stealing their money. Yes, they might try something legal or social. I don't care, I said, and I meant it. I want to see the receipts, Grandpa. Print them all out. Every fake dentist visit. Every stolen laptop. Way ahead of you. He hit a button. The portable printer he had brought, of course he brought one, word to life. As the pages printed, evidence of 10 years of exploitation, I felt my heart rate slow down. The tightness in my chest eased. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the daughter trying to please them. I was the auditor. And the audit was just beginning. The silence that followed the financial kill switch didn't last long. It was the calm before a nuclear detonation. I was sitting in Grandpa Joe's home office, a room lined with mahogany bookshelves and smelling of old paper and justice. We had just finished diverting my direct deposit to a new secure account at a credit union my parents had never heard of. My phone lay on the heavy oak desk between us, screen up. At 11:03 a.m., the screen lit up. It wasn't a call. It was a banking alert I hadn't turned off yet, a notification of a declined transaction. Alert, transaction declined. Shell station number 405, $128.50. A minute later, another one. Alert, transaction declined. Shell station number 405, $20. They were trying to run the card for smaller amounts, thinking it was a limit issue.
He's at the pump, Grandpa Joe said, sipping his coffee, his eyes twinkling with a dark amusement. He probably filled the tank of that monstrosity before swiping the card. Now he's blocking the lane with $100 of gas he can't pay for. I could visualize it perfectly. My father, Robert Miller, a man who believed waiting in line was for common people, standing there in his designer sunglasses, tapping the card reader aggressively while angry drivers honked behind him. The humiliation would be searing. For a narcissist, public embarrassment is worse than physical pain. Then my phone began to vibrate. It wasn't a buzz, it was a continuous, angry spasm. Dad, 11:15 a.m. Pick up, now. The card is broken. I'm standing here like an idiot. Dad, 11:17 a.m. Chelsea. The attendant is threatening to call the police. Send the money to my Venmo, immediately. Mom. Chelsea, baby, this isn't funny. Your father is shaking. You know he has high blood pressure. Do you want him to have a stroke right there at the gas station? Fix this. I stared at the messages. A week ago, that text from Mom would have sent me into a panic attack. I would have apologized, transferred the money, and probably paid an extra $100 as a sorry tax. But today I felt detached. It was like watching a movie where I already knew the ending. He's not having a stroke, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. He's having a tantrum. I didn't reply. I simply swiped the notifications away. By noon, the chaos had spread. Marissa was apparently at a Sephora near the resort. WTF? My card got declined in front of my followers. I was doing a shop with me story. You just humiliated me. Turn it back on. I can't believe you are being this petty. After I tagged you in that post, this is how you repay me? The audacity was breathtaking. She genuinely believed that tagging me in a photo of a picnic I wasn't invited to was a currency that bought her unlimited access to my bank account. Ready for phase 2? Joe asked. He pointed to the security feed from my apartment building on his laptop. He had remote access set up. They're coming home, he said. The gas station probably let them go after they left a copy of their license and promised to return with cash. They are heading straight to your place. I watched the screen. Sure enough, 40 minutes later, my parents' SUV, the one I paid the lease on, screeched to a halt in the loading zone of my apartment complex. They didn't look like worried parents rushing to check on a sick child. They looked like a SWAT team. Dad marched to the front door, his face a mask of red fury. Mom was trailing behind him, already holding a tissue, preparing her performance. Marissa was there too, holding her phone up, filming. She's documenting it, I realized, feeling a chill run down my spine. She's building a narrative. Dad jammered his key into the lobby door. It didn't turn. I had asked the landlord to digitally recode my fob access that morning. He tried again. Then he started pounding on the class. Through the security camera audio, I could hear him screaming. "Chelsea, I know you're up there. Open this door. You are stealing from us." Passers-by were stopping to stare. A neighbor, Mrs. Gable, walked out with her dog. Dad grabbed her arm. "Let me in," he demanded. "My daughter is in there. She's having a mental breakdown. She's dangerous. We need to get to her." Mrs. Gable pulled her arm away, looking terrified. I can't let strangers in. I'm calling security." "I'm not a stranger. I'm her father," Dad roared, kicking the glass door. I watched my father, the man who always lectured me on propriety and image, looking like a deranged animal. "Look at them," Joe said softly. "That's not love, Chelsea. That's an addict realizing their dealer has closed up shop." Mom stepped up to the glass, pressing her face against it, weeping theatrically. "Chelsea, please. We just want to help you. Don't shut us out. We love you." But even as she cried, I saw her eyes darting to Marissa's phone, checking the angle. She was posing. Then my phone rang. It wasn't them. It was the building manager. "Ms. Miller," he sounded annoyed. "There are 3 people in the lobby causing a massive disturbance. They claim to be your family and say you're in a medical crisis. Do you want me to let them up, or should I call the police?" I took a deep breath. This was the moment, the boundary line. "I am not home," I said, my voice steady. "I am safe elsewhere. Those people are trespassing. Please tell them if they don't leave, you will have them arrested." "Understood," the manager said. I watched on the screen as a uniformed security guard approached them. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Dad's face turn purple. He pointed a finger in the guard's face. The guard put a hand on his holster. Dad backed down. He spit on the ground, on the lobby floor of my building, and stormed back to the SUV. Mom and Marissa followed, Marissa still filming the whole retreat. "They're not done," Joe warned, closing the laptop. "Robert just lost a public skirmish. He needs to regain control. He needs a weapon that forces you to open the door." "What kind of weapon?" I asked. "The law," Joe said grimly. "Get some sleep, kid. You're gonna need it." The next 24 hours at Grandpa Joe's house were a strange mix of peace and dread. For the first time in years, I woke up without checking my bank balance. I drank coffee on the porch, listening to the birds, trying to remember who Chelsea was before she became the provider. But the storm was gathering. I could feel it. My phone was still blowing up, but the tone had shifted again. The rage was gone, replaced by a chilling, formal silence. No more texts, no more calls, just waiting. At 4 p.m. on Thursday, the doorbell rang. I froze. Did they find us? "Unlikely," Joe said, walking to the door. "I own this house under an LLC. Your name isn't attached to it. It's probably a delivery." He opened the door. It wasn't a delivery driver. It was a process server, a man with a clipboard and a weary expression that said he had ruined a lot of people's days and was just trying to get to 5 p.m. "Chelsea Miller?" he asked, looking past Joe. I stepped forward, my legs feeling like lead. "Yes? You've been served." He handed me a thick, heavy manila envelope. It felt warm in my hands, like it was radioactive. I took it to the kitchen table. Joe put on his reading glasses, his face serious. I tore open the seal. The header at the top of the first page made the blood drain from my face. State Superior Court, Family Division. Petition for emergency temporary conservatorship. Petitioners Robert Miller and Alina Miller. Respondent Chelsea Marie Miller. Conservatorship? I choked out, the word feeling foreign and terrifying in my mouth. Grandpa, isn't this what they did to Britney Spears, to old people with dementia? It is, Joe said, his voice dropping to a low growl. Read the affidavit. I flipped the page. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely focus on the text. The words swam before my eyes, a tapestry of lies woven to look like legal concern. The respondent, Chelsea Miller, has exhibited a rapid and severe decline in mental stability following a documented psychotic break at her place of employment on date, which resulted in hospitalization.
Psychopathic break? I screamed. I had a heart attack, a minor cardiac event. Keep reading, Joe urged. Since her discharge, the respondent has become paranoid and delusional. She has fled her primary residence, cut off all contact with her support system, the petitioners, and has recklessly liquidated or frozen financial assets necessary for the maintenance of her dependents. Dependents? I whispered. They called themselves my dependents. I'm 34 years old. They are capable adults. The petitioners believe the respondent is a danger to herself and her estate. We request immediate temporary guardianship over her person and her finances to prevent further dissipation of assets. We also request the authority to make medical decisions on her behalf, including admitting her to an inpatient mental health facility for observation. I dropped the papers. I felt like I was going to throw up. They want to lock me up, I said, tears finally spilling over. They want to put me in a psych ward so they can get access to my bank accounts again. They are willing to take away my freedom for an RV payment? It was a level of evil I couldn't comprehend. I knew they were selfish. I knew they were greedy. But this was predatory. This was treating me like a broken appliance that needed to be seized and stripped for parts. This is the nuclear option, Joe said, pacing the kitchen floor. They know the HELOC payment is due in 5 days. If they don't pay it, the bank starts foreclosure on the house. They can't get the money from you willingly anymore, so they are trying to get a judge to hand them the keys to your life. Can they win? I asked, looking at him with desperation. Grandpa, tell me they can't win. Joe stopped pacing. He looked at me, and he didn't lie. They have a compelling narrative, Chelsea. To an outsider, it looks bad. You collapsed, you vanished, you cut off money abruptly. If they cry hard enough, and if the judge is lazy, yes, they could get a temporary order. That freezes everything. It puts you under their control until a full trial. I felt the walls closing in. The house that felt safe 10 minutes ago now felt like a waiting room for a prison. I need a lawyer, I said. Not just a family friend. I need a shark. I already called Vance, Joe said. He's filing a notice of appearance right now. But we need more than a lawyer. We need to destroy their narrative. How? It's my word against theirs, and there are 3 of them. We need proof, Joe said. Proof that you aren't crazy. Proof that they are the ones manipulating the situation. But how do we prove a negative? How do I prove I'm not having a breakdown when they are telling everyone I am? Joe walked over to the stack of evidence we had printed yesterday, the receipts. We have the financial proof, he said, but that's for a fraud trial. For a conservatorship hearing, we need to prove malice. We need to prove they are lying about your mental state to steal your money. My phone dinged. A notification from Instagram. Marissa Miller is live. The truth about my sister. Joe and I looked at each other. They aren't just filing in court, Joe realized. They are trying the case in the court of public opinion first. They want to make sure that if you show up to court, the judge already sees you as the crazy sister. She's live right now? Open it, Joe commanded, and record everything. I opened the app. My sister's face filled the screen. She was in her bedroom, the bedroom I had paid to redecorate last year. She was wearing a hoodie, looking small and vulnerable. But her eyes were calculated. I cast the live stream to Grandpa Joe's large TV so we could both watch. The viewer count was climbing rapidly. 400, 800,
$1,200. People love a tragedy, especially one involving a perfect family falling apart. Marissa had set the stage perfectly. The lighting was dim. She held a mug of tea with both hands, trembling slightly. "Hi, guys," she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't want to do this. We usually keep family matters private, but we are desperate." The comment section was a river of sympathy. "We are here for you, Wissa. Sending prayers. What happened?" "It's my sister, Chelsea," Marissa said, wiping a tear that I was 90% sure was induced by Vicine. She's had a psychotic break. The doctors say it's severe. She thinks we are her enemies. She ran away from the hospital, and now she's hiding somewhere, refusing to take her medication. I don't even take medication." I yelled at the screen. "I take multivitamins." "Shh," Joe hissed. "Let her talk. She's committing defamation per se. Every word adds to our settlement." Marissa continued, leaning into the camera. "It's so scary. My dad, you guys know my dad, he's the sweetest man. He's heartbroken. He's been crying all day. And the worst part is, in her paranoia, Chelsea cut off the funds for my mom's medical treatments. My mom is sick, guys, and Chelsea just turned off the bank account." The lie was so grotesque it took my breath away. Mom's treatments were fillers and facials, but the internet didn't know that. The comments turned vicious. "What a monster! How can someone do that to their own mother? Find her. She needs to be locked up." Then came the grift. "We are trying to get legal guardianship so we can force her to get help," Marissa said, looking directly into the lens. "But lawyers are expensive, and with my mom's medical bills piling up, we started a GoFundMe. The link is in my bio. Please, even $5 helps bring Chelsea home." "They are crowdfunding their lawsuit against me," I said, feeling a mix of nausea and rage. "They are using my name to scam people out of money to sue me." "It's brilliant," Joe admitted darkly. "Evil, but brilliant." Marissa sighed deeply. "I'm going to go check on my dad. I'll leave the stream on for a minute while I grab some tissues. Please, guys, pray for us." She set the phone down on her vanity table. The camera angle shifted. Now it was pointing at the ceiling and the top of her closet door. She walked out of the frame. I heard her bedroom door creak open, then click shut, but she didn't close it all the way, and crucially, she didn't mute the microphone. For a few seconds, there was just the hum of the room. The chat was still scrolling with prayers and donations. Then, voices, muffled but audible. How did it go? It was my mother's voice, the sick woman. She sounded crisp and annoyed. "I think I nailed it." Marissa's voice drifted back. She must have been standing right outside the door. "We already have $600 in the pot." "Good," Mom said. "We need $5,000 for the retainer by Monday. Did you mention the medication?" "Yeah, I said she cut off your treatments." The chat went crazy. They hate her. I watched the chat on the screen. It froze for a second. "Wait, did you hear that? Nailed it?" Then my father's voice boomed. He was further away, but loud. "Is she still crying on the internet? Tell her to hurry up. I need to know if the lawyer thinks the judge will buy the mental instability angle. If Chelsea shows up to court acting normal, we're screwed." "Dad, keep it down," Marissa hissed. But yeah, the lawyer said as long as we have the hospital records, we can force a temporary order. Once we have the guardianship, we can access the 401k immediately to pay off the RV loan. "Thank God," Mom sighed. "I am not losing that RV. We have the trip to Napa next month." The silence in the room at Grandpa Joe's was absolute, but on the screen, the chat was exploding. "OMG, the mic is on. They are scamming us." "It's for an RV? Free Chelsea." The tide turned instantly. The sympathy evaporated, replaced by the righteous fury of 1,000 betrayed internet users. Refund. I'm reporting this page. Someone record this. I grabbed Joe's arm. "Grandpa, tell me you got that." Joe tapped his keyboard. Screen recording active. High definition audio. I have been recording since she started. On screen, Marissa walked back into the room. She sat down, rubbed her eyes to smear her mascara,
and looked at the phone with a tragic expression. "I'm back, guys. My dad is just—" She stopped. She read the chat. Her eyes went wide. Real, genuine panic washed over her face. She scrolled up. She saw the transcripts of what people had heard. "Wait," she stammered. No, that was the TV."
"We were watching a movie." "Liar!" the chat screamed. Marissa's hand flew to the phone. The stream cut to black, but it was too late. Joe stopped the recording and saved the file. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long, satisfied breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, mimicking a ringmaster. "We got him." "Is that enough?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Is that enough to stop the conservatorship?" "Stop it?" Joe laughed. "Chelsea, that video isn't just a shield, it's a sword. We aren't just going to win the hearing on Monday. We are going to walk into that courtroom and detonate their entire lives." He turned to me, his eyes fierce. "You were worried about proving a negative, about proving you aren't crazy. Well, nothing proves sanity better than catching your accusers plotting a federal crime on livestream." I looked at the black screen where my sister had been. For years I had been afraid of them, afraid of their anger, their judgment, their disappointment. But now, I realized they were just small, greedy people playing a game they didn't understand, and I had the controller. "Send the video to Vance," I said, my voice cold and steady. "And Grandpa, don't post it online yet." "Why not? The internet is hungry." "Because," I said, a smile finally touching my lips, "I want to see the look on their faces when we play it for the judge." Monday morning arrived with a sky the color of a bruised plum. It was fitting. Inside the Superior Court building, the air was recycled and cold, smelling of floor wax and nervous sweat. I sat next to Grandpa Joe and our lawyer, Vance, a man whose tailored suit was sharp enough to cut glass. My hands were folded in my lap. They weren't shaking. After what I had seen on that live stream, my fear had evaporated, replaced by a cold, crystalline resolve. Then the doors opened, and the circus arrived. My parents didn't just walk in. They made an entrance. My father, Robert, who had been screaming at a security guard just 3 days prior and kicking my apartment door, was now being wheeled in. Yes, in a wheelchair. He was wearing a faded cardigan I hadn't seen in years, slumped over like a man on death's door. My mother walked beside him, dressed entirely in black, clutching a rosary beads. Marissa trailed behind them, wearing no makeup, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, looking like a penitent nun rather than an influencer. It was a masterclass in manipulation. If I didn't know them, if I didn't know that invalid in the wheelchair had driven an RV 4 hours to a resort last week, I would have felt sorry for them. "Look at the theater," Joe whispered, leaning close to my ear. "He's going for the broken patriarch angle. Don't react. Face forward." I nodded. I felt their eyes on me, burning, hateful stares masked by performances of sorrow. The judge, the Honorable Margaret Stone, took her seat. She was a woman in her 60s, with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and a face that suggested she had heard every lie ever invented. "We are here for an emergency petition for temporary conservatorship," Judge Stone said, her voice dry. "Petitioners Robert and Elena Miller versus respondent Chelsea Miller. Counsel, proceed." My parents' lawyer, a sweaty man named Mr. Greaves, who looked like he chased ambulances for sport, stood up. He lowered his voice to a hush, as if he were in a library or a funeral home. "Your Honor," Greaves began, gesturing to my parents, "my clients are devastated. They are loving, devoted parents who have watched their daughter, Chelsea, spiral into a severe mental health crisis. We have medical records indicating she collapsed at work due to what we believe was a psychotic break induced by mania." He paused for effect. My mother let out a perfectly timed sob. Marissa patted her back. "Since that event," Greaves continued, "Chelsea has exhibited classic paranoid behavior. She has fled her home. She has cut off contact with the family that has supported her for decades. Worse, she has vindictively severed the financial lifelines necessary for her parents' survival. Her father, a man with a heart condition, is sitting here today only by the grace of God, terrified that his daughter is going to hurt herself or squander her estate. We are asking the court to intervene, to save Chelsea from herself. He sat down. It was a good speech. It checked every box: concern, medical urgency, danger. Judge Stone looked at me. Mr. Vance, does your client wish to respond? Vance stood up. He didn't use a hushed voice. He spoke with the crisp, boring precision of a tax auditor. Your Honor, we vehemently deny these allegations. Ms. Miller did not have a psychotic break. She had a stress-induced cardiac event caused by overwork, work she was performing to support the very people petitioning to control her. Vance picked up a document. I would like to call our first witness, Dr. Reynolds, the attending physician who treated Chelsea at St. Mary's Hospital. My parents froze. They hadn't expected us to bring the doctor. They thought they could just use his notes out of context. Dr. Reynolds walked to the stand. He was tall, calm, and radiated authority. Dr. Reynolds, Vance asked, in your professional opinion, during Chelsea Miller's stay in her ICU, did she exhibit signs of mania, psychosis, or mental instability? No, Dr. Reynolds said firmly. She was exhausted, she was dehydrated, and she was heartbroken because her family never answered our calls. But she was cognitively sharp. In fact, she was lucid enough to make complex medical decisions immediately upon waking. Did you recommend she be institutionalized? Absolutely not. I recommended she reduce stress. Specifically, I noted in her chart that the primary stressor appeared to be family pressure. Vance nodded. Thank you, doctor. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, the petitioners claim my client is crazy. The medical professional who treated her says she is sane. The petitioners claim they are here out of love. We argue they are here out of greed. Mr. Greaves jumped up. Objection. Speculation. Sustained, Judge Stone said, though she was looking at my father in his wheelchair with a skeptical eye. Mr. Vance, get to the point. The point, Your Honor, is that this petition is not about mental health. It is about an RV. My father's head snapped up. For a second, the frail old man mask slipped, replaced by a flash of panic. An RV? Judge Stone asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Your Honor. A Winnebago purchased 2 days before my client's collapse. A vehicle purchased with funds leveraged against a house my client pays for. We believe this conservatorship is a Hail Mary attempt to seize my client's 401k to pay off a loan the petitioners cannot afford. Lies, my father shouted from his wheelchair. She's lying. She's paranoid. Mr. Miller, sit down and be quiet, Judge Stone snapped. Mr. Vance, those are serious accusations. Do you have proof of this intent? Vance smiled. It was the same wolfish smile Grandpa Joe had worn in the kitchen. We do, Your Honor. In fact, we have a confession, recorded by the petitioner's daughter, Marissa Miller, less than 48 hours ago. Marissa gasped. The color drained from her face so fast, she looked like a ghost. She grabbed her mother's arm. Permission to play Exhibit A, Vance said. Granted. The courtroom was silent. I looked at the gallery. There were only a few people there, clerks, a bailiff, but I felt like thousands of you were standing right behind me. We had come this far. We had taken the abuse, the gaslighting, and the theft. Now it was time to let the truth speak. If you are listening to this right now, and you have ever been silenced by someone who claimed they knew what was best for you, I want you to take a breath with me. This moment is for us. Please, hit that like button and type the number 1 in the comments. Let me know you are standing in this courtroom with me. Type 1 and let's watch them crumble together. Vance connected his laptop to the court's AV system. A large screen on the wall flickered to life. Suddenly, Marissa's face, massive and high definition, filled the courtroom. It was the live stream from her bedroom. I think I nailed it. Her voice echoed through the speakers, loud and clear. We already have $600 in the pot. In the courtroom, real-life Marissa put her hands over her face. My mother went rigid, staring at the screen as if it were a monster. The video continued. My mother's voice rang out, crisp and calculating. Good. We need $5,000 for the retainer by Monday. Did you mention the medication? Yeah, I said she cut off your treatments. The chat went crazy. They hate her. Judge Stone leaned forward. Her glasses slid down her nose. She wasn't taking notes anymore. She was watching with a look of pure disgust. Then came the kicker. My father's voice boomed from the speakers. I need to know if the lawyer thinks the judge will buy the mental instability angle. Once we have the guardianship, we can access the 401k immediately to pay off the RV loan. Thank God, the recorded voice of my mother sighed. I am not losing that RV. We have the trip to Napa next month. Vance paused the video right there. The freeze frame showed the chat stream on the side of the video, where hundreds of people were calling them scammers. The silence in the courtroom was heavy, suffocating. It was the sound of a narrative being decapitated. Mr. Greaves, Judge Stone said, her voice dangerously quiet, did you know about this recording? The lawyer, Mr. Greaves, was sweating profusely. He was shoving papers into his briefcase, looking like he wanted to vanish. Your Honor, I was not aware of the origin of the retainer fee, nor the specific motivations regarding the recreational vehicle. You filed a sworn affidavit claiming the respondent was psychotic, Judge Stone hissed, while your clients were on a live stream admitting they were fabricating the story to fund a vacation. My father suddenly miraculously recovered from his frailty. He sat up straight in the wheelchair, his face turning a deep, violent red. That's out of context, he shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. She entrapped us. She hacked Marissa's phone. Mr. Miller, the judge barked. One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt. But Vance wasn't done. He looked at Grandpa Joe. Joe nodded. Your Honor, Vance said. We have one more matter to address regarding the petitioner's claim that they need to protect the estate. The petitioners claim my client has ceased paying the mortgage on the family home, putting their housing at risk. That's true, Mom wailed, unable to help herself. She stopped paying. We'll be homeless. Vance turned to the back of the room. I would like to introduce Mr. Joseph Miller, the father of the petitioner, Robert Miller. Grandpa Joe stood up. He buttoned his tweed jacket and walked to the railing. He didn't look at Dad. He looked straight at the judge. Your Honor, Joe said, his voice gravelly and firm. I am the legal owner of the property at 42 Oak Creek Drive. Dad's jaw dropped. What? No, you transferred the deed to me 10 years ago. I drew up the papers, Joe said calmly. But you never signed them, Robert. You were too busy trying to dodge a tax lien at the time, remember? You asked me to hold it in trust a little longer, and then you forgot. Dad stammered. For 10 years, Joe continued, I have allowed my son and his family to live there rent-free, provided they paid the mortgage and maintenance. It appears they outsourced that obligation to my granddaughter, Chelsea. Joe pulled a document from his pocket, a red eviction notice. Since the petitioners have engaged in fraud against my granddaughter, and since they have attempted to abuse the legal system to enslave her, I am terminating their tenancy. They have 30 days to vacate my property. The sound that came out of my mother was not a sob. It was a shriek. A high-pitched, animalistic sound of total ruin. You can't do that, she screamed, standing up. It's our home. We have status in this community. You can't throw us on the street. Judge Stone banged her gavel. The sound cracked like a gunshot. Order! Order in this court. She glared at my parents. Her eyes were hard as flint. Petition for conservatorship is denied, she ruled. Dismissed with prejudice. I am also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential charges regarding fraud and filing false affidavits. She turned to Greaves. And you, counselor, I will be reporting this conduct to the Bar Association. If you ever bring a frivolous petition like this into my courtroom again, you won't be practicing law in this state. And as for you, she looked at my parents, you should be ashamed. You didn't come here to save a daughter. You came here to rob a bank. Get out of my sight. Case closed. The gavel banged one last time. My father sat in his wheelchair, stunned. The invalid act was forgotten. He looked small. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who had bet everything on a bluff and lost. Marissa was scrolling frantically on her phone.
"Mom," she whispered, panic rising in her voice. "The video. Someone recorded the live stream. It's on TikTok. It has 2 million views. They're tagging the brands I work with." "I don't care about your brands," Mom shrieked.
"We're losing the house." I stood up. I felt light, physically light. The weight that had been pressing on my chest since I was 22 years old was gone. I walked past them toward the exit. Grandpa Joe was right beside me. "Chelsea," Dad called out, his voice cracked. "Chelsea, wait. We can fix this. Grandpa's bluffing. Tell him we're family." I stopped. I turned around slowly. I looked at the man who had ignored 74 calls from the ICU. I looked at the woman who gaslit me for a decade. I looked at the sister who monetized my pain. "You're right," I said softly. "We are family." Hope flared in his eyes. "And that," I said, "is the only reason I'm not pressing charges for the credit card theft. Yet." I turned my back on them. "Goodbye, Dad. Good luck with the RV." I pushed open the heavy courtroom doors and walked out into the hallway. The air out there was still cold, still recycled, but to me, it smelled like sweet, intoxicating freedom. The drive back to Grandpa Joe's house was quiet, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was the silence of a battlefield after the cannons have finally stopped firing. Joe stopped at a diner on the way home. "Pancakes," he said. "We need victory pancakes." We sat in a booth, eating stacks of syrup-drenched cakes, scrolling through the fallout on my phone. Joe was right about the internet. It hadn't just eaten them alive. It had picked the bones clean. The clip of Marissa admitting to the scam had gone viral. It was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Reddit. The hashtag #RVScam was trending. Imagine faking your sister's mental breakdown so you can go to Napa. These people are ghouls. Update: Sephora and Revolve have dropped Marissa Miller from their partner programs. Actions have consequences. I watched Marissa's follower count drop in real time. 15,000, 12,000, 8,000. People weren't just unfollowing, they were reporting her account for fraud. By the time we finished our coffee, her account had been suspended by the platform. Her digital life, the only thing she truly valued, was erased. But the real-world consequences were faster. 3 days later, Grandpa Joe followed through. He hired a sheriff's deputy to serve the formal eviction notice. I didn't go. I didn't want to see it, but Joe told me about it.
"Robert tried to threaten the deputy," Joe said, chuckling as he polished his glasses. "Told him he knew the mayor. The deputy told him he had 30 days to get his junk out, or it would be on the curb." The bank foreclosed on the RV the same week. Since they couldn't make the payment and the loan from me never came, the dealership repossessed it. That apparently tried to hide it in a neighbor's garage, but the repo man found it. The neighbor, furious about being dragged into it, posted the video of the repossession on Facebook. I watched it once. Just once. Seeing my father screaming at a tow truck driver, waving his arms while the gleaming Winnebago was hooked up and dragged away, it didn't make me happy. It just made me sad. It was a monument to his ego, being towed away to an auction lot. The attempts to contact me came in waves. First, it was bargaining. Mom, email. "Chelsea, we are so sorry. We got carried away. We were just scared. Grandpa is kicking us out. Please talk to him. We have nowhere to go. We are family." Then anger. "Dad, voicemail. You think you're so smart. You destroyed us. I hope you're happy. You'll die alone, Chelsea. No one loves a traitor." Then, finally, silence. I changed my number. I deleted my old email address. I blocked them on every platform. But the hardest part wasn't the logistics. It was the internal reprogramming. For weeks, I would wake up in a panic, reaching for my phone to check if a bill was due. I would walk through the grocery store and instinctively reach for the brand of coffee Dad liked, even though I hated it. I had to learn how to be Chelsea again. Not Chelsea the provider. Not Chelsea the ATM. Just Chelsea. I started seeing a therapist. She told me something that stuck with me. "You didn't abandon them," she said. "You just stopped carrying them. If they couldn't walk on their own, that was never your fault." Grandpa Joe helped me sell my old car, the beat-up Honda.
With the money I wasn't sending to my parents, my bank account was growing at a terrifying speed. It turned out, when you aren't supporting 4 adults, a project manager's salary is actually quite a lot of money. "What are you going to do?" Joe asked me one evening, a month after the trial.
We were sitting on his porch, watching the sunset. "You can stay here as long as you want, but you're young. You shouldn't be living with an old bean counter." "I don't know," I said. "I've never thought about what I want. I only ever thought about what they needed." "Well," Joe said, lighting his pipe, "they don't need anything from you anymore. They are figuring it out. Marissa is working as a hostess at a chain restaurant. Peyton moved in with a boyfriend. Your parents are renting a small apartment in the next town over. They survived. Parasites usually do." He looked at me. "So the question remains, where does Chelsea want to go?" I closed my eyes. I imagined a place where the air was thin and clean, where mountains scraped the sky.
A place where no one knew my last name or my history. "Colorado," I whispered. "I've always liked the pictures of Colorado." "Then go," Joe said. "Pack your bags. I'll help you with the lease." 6 months later. The air here smells like pine needles and cold earth. I'm sitting on the deck of a small A-frame cabin outside of Boulder. My laptop is open, but for the first time in my life, I'm not working overtime. I'm just writing this. I work as a consultant now, freelance. I make my own hours. If I want to take a hike at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, I do. And the only person I have to ask for permission is myself. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Grandpa Joe. He sends me a picture of his garden. He's finally growing those prized tomatoes he always talked about. "Joe, tomatoes are coming in."
"House is quiet. Miss you, kid, but glad you aren't here." I smile. I haven't spoken to my parents or sisters in half a year. Sometimes I hear things through the grapevine. I heard Dad tried to sue the RV dealership and lost. I heard Mom is telling people at her church that I joined a cult. It doesn't hurt anymore. It's just noise. Distant static on a radio station I no longer listen to. I look at my bank account app. There is a emergency fund there. It has 6 months of expenses in it. It's for me. If I get sick, if I collapse again, I can take care of myself. I don't need to wait for a phone call that will never come. I sip my coffee, the cheap, dark roast that I like. It wasn't easy getting here. There are nights I still feel guilty. The strong one programming runs deep. I wonder if I was too harsh. I wonder if I should have given them one more chance. But then I look at the photo I keep framed on my desk. It's not a family photo. It's the screenshot. The one of the picnic. Family day without the drama. That photo used to make me cry. Now it reminds me of the truth. They were right. I was the drama. I was the reality check they didn't want. I was the mirror that showed them their own selfishness. And by removing myself, I didn't destroy the family. I just let gravity take its course. Grandpa Joe visited last week. We hiked up a trail near the Flatirons. At the top, looking out over the valley, he turned to me. "You look different," he said. "Older?" I asked. "No," he said. "Lighter." He handed me a small envelope. "Your dad sent this to my house, addressed to you." I took it. I recognized the handwriting. I held it for a long moment, watching the wind ripple through the trees. "Do you want to open it?" Joe asked. I thought about it. I thought about the 74 missed calls. I thought about the conservatorship. I thought about the feeling of waking up in the ICU alone. "No," I said. I didn't tear it up. I didn't burn it dramatically. I just put it in my backpack to throw away at the trailhead trash can. Reading it wouldn't change anything. It would either be a fake apology asking for money or a hateful rant. Neither of those things belonged in my new life. "Good choice," Joe said, squeezing my shoulder. I turned back to the view. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of gold and violet. It was beautiful, and it was mine. I realized then that peace isn't something you find. It's something you build. You build it with boundaries. You build it by saying no. You build it by realizing that you are the protagonist of your own life, not just a supporting character in someone else's dysfunction. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the sharp, clean air. My heart beat steadily in my chest. Strong. Rhythm. Mine. Ready to go down? Joe asked. Yeah, I smiled, turning away from the edge. I'm ready. That is my story. It cost me my family to find my freedom, but looking back, I realized I was paying for a family that didn't exist anyway.
I bought my own life back, and it was the best investment I ever made. Thank you so much for listening to the end. I truly appreciate you. If you made it this far, you are the real MVP. Please comment the letter A below. Let me know you are one of the deep thinkers. Don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel for more stories of truth and resilience. Stay strong, stay safe.